Hello, hello. There we go. Morning, Amit.
How are you, Andrew? You right?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you.
Excellent. I think first and foremost,
Do we need to get the LinkedIn live or is it live now?
I'm just about to do that. Sorry, guys. We're just trying to get something live, so you can. This goes out on LinkedIn as well, guys. We're still kind of playing around with the tech to kind of get it up and going. But morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well. One thing I'm going to do straight away this week is I'm going to put my phone down here, so everyone, so Amit doesn't get distracted during our show, because that seemed to be something that was happening last time. So I think we are now live on LinkedIn as well, from what I believe. So here we go. Yep, we're good now. That's the only one we're going live on this week. So we tested LinkedIn last week. We've been testing Facebook this week, guys, and we're going to be testing YouTube over the course of the week as well. So just while we wait for a few more people to jump in here, welcome to the Growth Show. As you know, this is our kind of weekly catch up, bit of a kind of news burn, right, as far as things that are interesting us, and then deep dive, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look, thanks for tuning in, guys. We're trying to make this kind of accessible to as many people as possible. So we've had people say that Zoom is kind of restricted within their companies, and you know, what other options are there. So we've got LinkedIn, and like Andrew said, we're going to be sort of expanding that. Omnichannel, Andrew. Omnichannel.
This is the whole approach, right? So that's our deep dive today, guys, all around the omnichannel. We thought we'd start off by playing around with the omnichannel and how you guys interact with us and engage with us. Obviously, we put this out as a podcast as well. So for those of you subscribing to the channel and also downloading our podcast, highly appreciated. Amit and I have been in this for a couple of years. I see that Wilma's set, so I didn't set up lighting today. One of our guys set up the lighting. I seem to be very red today, and you seem to have like a bitch in tan. I don't know what's going on. Like,
I actually have
been playing golf.
I'm going to be on to it. Been out on the golf course. I've been out watching my daughter play football. So so yeah, I've been in the sun. But
whereas me in the sun, I basically look like I've opened the door in a blast furnace. My wife said that to me yesterday. She goes, "You've been in the sun again." I hadn't, so I don't know what's going on. Just very embarrassed to be on live TV. Anyway, awesome. So yeah, look, guys, just while we wait for people to come in, I think let's kind of jump straight into the news that's kind of caught my attention, your attention. I want to start off with this one because I kind of live in this world a bit with my son being a gamer, and I was just blown away the money involved in this. Right. So I think for people that are not involved in gaming, you kind of see it as a bit frivolous, right? It's kind of, yeah, it's over there. But Activision released their kind of revenue reports, and they said that they managed to generate $5.1 billion from microtransactions last year. So these are in-game purchase, right? So most of the games that people buy, well, no, sorry, I shouldn't say that. A lot of the games now, first-person shooter, things like that, or even a whole host of other games allow you to purchase things. And these, you know, microtransactions, right? It's $1 here, it's $1 there, it's top end $10.
Virtual products.
Yes,
as well.
yeah, virtual clothes. You know, hats, I mean, pets, you can buy pets, all sorts of crazy stuff across multiple games. So but just genuinely was blown away.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? Because I think I told you a story last year where, you know, my kids were like, "Oh, Dad, I need $20." I'm like, "Why?" Yeah. And they were like, "So we can buy some Robux." I'm like,
"Oh yeah, Robux." I was
like, "What the hell is Robux?" And they're like, "Oh, it's on Roblox." I was like, "Okay, and what do you buy for that?" "Oh, you know, just things." And I'm like, "Show me." And I was like, "Do people do this?" And they were like, yeah, everyone. And so I went and bought shares the next day. So I was like, this is nuts, right? Because this costs, you know, this stuff costs nothing to generate or very little if you've got sort of contributors. But the reality is it's incredibly high margin business, right?
That's right.
So if Activision have done what, 5.1 billion last year?
5.1 billion microtransactions.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you start looking at why Microsoft have just you know, spent so much money on them.
And look, also, you know, it doesn't feel like a microtransaction when I look at my credit card right at the end of the month.
and you're clearly blaming this on your son.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, I am so glad that this wasn't around when I was a kid. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of like yard work and painting and cleaning and everything that I would have to do to generate revenue to kind of then ultimately give back to my dad to buy some stuff online. But I mean, look, highly customizable. So I think that was the first one that kind of caught my eye. Anything that caught your eye this week?
Yeah, so I think that was a big one, but I think we'll skip past that for a second. I think the interesting one that I saw was really comparisons between YouTube and Netflix.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And you know, Netflix is obviously, you know, market leader in terms of, you know, what
streaming,
it does, right?
Yeah.
In terms of streaming videos and things like that. But I think the reality is YouTube has kind of, you know, been around for a long time. The revenues that YouTube generate from advertising are actually higher. Okay, this is based on Google's or Alphabet's earnings report last week.
Oh yes, yeah.
So the revenue that YouTube ads generate is now higher than what Netflix generates from subscriptions.
Right. Okay.
Right, just for context. So a tiny part of Google.
Alphabet,
yeah. And what you're looking at now, and the numbers are, I mean, they're close, but I mean, you're still talking about a bit of difference there.
Yeah.
So sort of YouTube's run rate for this year is about $34 billion in revenue. Netflix is about 30 billion. And so you just kind of, you know, put it into context and you know, well, the amount of money that's in that kind of video space, I think is incredible. But I think when you kind of almost look at how Netflix have to invest to create that content, YouTube, a lot of that content is from other people,
content creators. Yeah.
I mean, it just shows what a phenomenal business YouTube is, and I think, I mean, when you start to kind of compare it like that from a kind of, you know, Netflix YouTube perspective, it really does put it into context. You know how strong YouTube is.
It's interesting. Some of the streaming services in the States, like Hulu and some of these guys, offer a ad-supported subscription, so you pay less amount
for ads,
but
for
you
no ads.
you pay more for no ads.
Right, sorry.
So so like they've got an entry level offering from a subscription that you see some ads, right?
Yeah.
And I just wondered if Netflix would ever kind of dip their toes in that space. You know, from a sponsorship or branding or takeovers, because they don't really do any of that, right? Even on their own content. I mean, obviously they're producing, as you said, their own series, documentaries, movies, and they don't seem to do any of that kind of sponsored piece, I guess. But yeah, I mean,
it's really interesting, right? Because I mean, and I'm not sure, because again, Netflix are now putting the prices up in the States,
and they're also getting gaming.
And they're getting a game.
Yeah.
So I think they'll kind of explore other revenue models, I think, before they potentially start to lower subscription rates. I mean, the easy thing for them would have been ads. I mean, the second Netflix switch on ads, like that Spotify model, I guess, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I think, you know, the second Netflix, I think, switch on ads, I mean, their revenues can skyrocket, right?
Yeah.
But their user numbers can drop. So I think it's just that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a challenge. I think it's quite comical now that we don't really see that in this part of the world, but in the States now, kind of people we talk to there, I know you've spoken to the guys over there. I mean, it's almost going back to old cable days, where you've got so many different streaming services, right? With Disney Plus and Paramount and Discovery and you know, there's also that DIY network, Magnolia. You know, there's all of these kind of now to the point where you're probably spending more than you used to do for cable if you want all these streaming services, because they're all creating their own content, right? Apple and all that stuff.
Very true.
Yeah.
And then the last one, I guess we both kind of had a bit of a chat about this, but it was Facebook, right?
Nosedive, right?
Yeah, so
absolute nosedive.
So really kind of interesting. So Facebook's earnings report for the quarter released last week, and really kind of interesting in the sense of actually their numbers weren't too bad.
No.
The problem is they're saying actually Q2 numbers are going to be bad. Right. So you know,
active users down 1 million, right?
Yeah. So active users are down for the first time, and this is a real challenge, and I think it's the first time, obviously, that this has happened, right? So
that's right.
So I think Zuckerberg's got a lot of kind of challenges. I mean, the stock dropped by close to 50%, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally off a cliff. Yeah.
And also now, you know, there's kind of talk, and it's kind of, it's interesting because there's like ego comes into play, right? So when you look at some of these other platforms that are out there, you know, like the big tech platforms, Facebook has always been sort of, you know, part of that sort of big tech thing, right? Because of the kind of lofty valuations and stuff. But now the valuation is down to, you know, only $600 million. But pales into sort of almost, you know, insignificance when you're talking about, you know, the Apples and the
Yeah,
Alphabets and, you know, companies like that, which are, you know, kind of minimum sort of 1.3, 1.4 trillion. So, you know, they're saying, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't really call Facebook big tech anymore. It's just one of those companies, right? Which is interesting. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, Salesforce's valuation up until a few months ago, it's about 450, 500 million.
Yeah.
You know, so if you start to even compare it, you know, in that sense, I mean, Facebook still has nearly 3 billion users globally, which is pretty much the entire world.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting attacked from all different angles, right? I mean, I think they're obviously got a massive threat from TikTok as far as usage and kind of people actually using a platform. And then ultimately they took a big hit with, you know, Apple's privacy, right? Where through the app tracking, funnily enough, I'd installed another new app yesterday and it popped up and said, hey, are you okay for us to track you across other apps? No. You know, we spoke about that a few months ago, and I think it was something insane, like a 7% people say yes, you can track me. So obviously, I mean, Facebook have lost a tremendous amount of ground there, and also he's betting heavily big in that metaverse, right? You know, he's focused a lot of energy and efforts and attention in that, and I don't know. There's always talk of, you know, should he have ultimate control over it? And you got to believe the shareholders now are screaming even louder to kind of get more say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's the last sort of founder, right? Who's kind of still CEO and running.
Yeah, because Jack jumped off Twitter now, right?
Yeah. So he's pretty much, you know, I'm not talking about like
Snap is he's still there, but that's.
I
mean, but they've done a pretty good job of repositioning themselves as a discovery platform.
Yeah.
They're a content discovery platform. They're not very much social, or that's not the way they position themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's content discovery. So that's like an app that you go to, especially, I mean, there's some good quality content, obviously, that's produced locally, not really aimed at us. But when you're in the States and you open up Snapchat, there's some phenomenal content on there. Like, I mean, you know, you watch the news and like sports and everything, right?
Yeah. And I think just to compound the issues of Facebook, the Snap stock went in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And they announced that they've made their first quarterly profit. So I think they had a 50% bump. But you know, I think it's interesting. You know, when we talk about Meta and the metaverse and Facebook's kind of dive, people are still saying, look, that's a 10-year play. And I think Zuckerberg himself is saying, look, this is 3 to 5 years. But you know, the industry is saying it's not 3 to 5 years, and perhaps 10 years. And before Facebook starts to see any kind of return on investment, we're talking 10 years from now.
I saw something pretty cool yesterday that was a bit of a blast from the past. Some of the cinemas in the States, and I think they should do it here, are doing interactive games, pre-trailers. So you kind of load up an AR app, and you can shoot asteroids and stuff off a screen.
That's cool.
It's amazing. Yeah, I just saw it yesterday. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, I think time to take a dive into our main subject, right?
Yeah, and this is interesting. I mean, like this topic is, you know, I think it's something that we've touched upon a lot in the last 2 years.
Yep.
You know, it's not new. We're talking about, you know, sort of omnichannel sales and
haven't said the word omnichannel though.
We haven't said omnichannel, no.
I stopped using the word omnichannel.
Okay.
I stopped using the word holistic. Literally
Did
up
you?
until
both of those words today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's interesting when we're kind of going through notes. I mean, those are the ones that I don't know why. I just felt like it was something that was coming up a lot and almost like a bit of a tick. So I think, you know, now I feel comfortable enough to talk about it.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, you know, in our space there's so many kind of, you know, buzzwords that come into play, and I guess we're kind of not very buzzworthy, right? We kind of, you know, we were
trying to avoid it.
We were telling our PR team last week that we kind of, you know, don't want to be kind of seen as, you know, the experts.
No.
Because it's just a lot of fakeness in the industry. Right?
Expert guru.
There's guys who go around saying, oh, you know, omnichannel is. But you know, the reality is
it's what people understand.
Yeah, and I think actually the whole, again, why this topic I think becomes really interesting is just because things are changing, right? And we knew that sort of COVID was going to have an impact. It did have an impact. I think the reality is we all thought, okay, perhaps this is like a 2 or 3 month thing if we go back a couple of years. And once COVID's done, the whole world goes back to normal. that's not happened, and we're still, we've still got people in the company today with COVID cases, right? I mean, we're just,
exactly.
so this isn't necessarily
Not
going
us,
away.
by the way. Just,
Not us, we're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the point is, I think we spoke about this at the time. We were like, the longer COVID continues, the harder it is to be able to go back to what it was, right?
Habit forming, right?
And it happened, in the sense, I think we all kind of hated working from home for the first few weeks. And then all of a sudden we're like, actually, this is okay. We kind of really like working from home. And
had meetings yesterday. It was horrible. Spent over an hour and a half in the car.
Right, exactly.
Burning through my time.
Yeah, so it's taken me an hour to get into the office.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing we've looked at. I mean, there's been so many efficiencies that have almost come out of COVID, right?
Necessity, yeah.
And then what's happened on the back of it is actually people are saying, well, look, actually, this is how we've done business for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What's been the impact on the business? And if people are saying, well, actually, there's been little or no impact, or the opposite, where actually it's had a positive impact, by kind of forcing ourselves to do things that we potentially didn't do before, even though the technology existed.
Yeah.
But we just weren't maybe using it as much or utilizing it. Well, why change? Why go back?
Yeah,
right.
True.
And I think a lot of this is and this topic, again, I think it's just getting more and more news now, because I think we're 2 years into it. The big sort of research companies and consultancies have now had time to kind of conduct some really kind of big studies.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was an article that caught our eye, which is again why we're discussing this, which is in the Harvard Business Review last week. But again, this was also on the back of a McKinsey report prior to that. And I think this is where it gets really interesting now, because there's real data that's supporting the new approach, right, in terms of why companies really need to embrace it. And there's a lot of companies, and again, we live in a part of the world where people do want to kind of shake hands.
Hug.
I'm doing a lot of handshaking again now, and I'm like, do I? No, it's really uncomfortable, because for that split second, I'm like, if I just caught COVID.
I had the uncomfortable one the other day where I went in for a good old handshake and someone gave me their fist. So I was giving it one of these.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on. People don't know, right? What to do.
Exactly.
But anyway, I think the reality is people want to kind of sit face to face or look you in the eye.
Yeah.
And so a lot of companies over here have reverted back and did revert back as soon as they could, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like, and we've gone into boardrooms and everyone's sitting in there in a mask, and you're just like, this is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's better to do it on Zoom. Something like that, it's just better to do it on Zoom. Like, if you can't see people's faces and stuff, it's just not.
Yeah, exactly. So I think again, so I think we've got to kind of caveat this slightly. But the point is if we go back to that sort of McKinsey study, what they found. I've got some numbers here, but really what they were saying is even things like 94% of people within business, B2B business specifically, were saying that this new way is at least as effective, if not more effective.
Okay.
And I think that's huge, right?
Yeah.
I think the challenge about this, and we've spoken about it, right, is like I said, there's a lot of businesses saw it as a temporary thing.
Yeah.
What's changed is buyers are now saying, no, this is permanent.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't need to meet you.
Yeah, decisions taken away from them.
Yeah, I don't need to meet you.
Yeah.
Until I need to meet you.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this whole process is really, really what's driving it. And it's almost like in the sort of B2C world, when we're dealing with consumers, consumers will only sort of pay for what they want.
Yeah.
And they'll only do things in a way they want to do things. Right. But in terms of in terms of the B2B world, it's kind of I think in some respects been driven by the seller as opposed to the buyer. But this is if you want to kind of engage, this is the process. This is what we have to do.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is this has just given a bit more control now to the buyers, and the buyers are now turning around and saying, "Hold on, like you said, we're empowered enough to kind of make our own decisions,
run
do
the
what
show
we need to do." And this has really kind of severe sort of consequences, and I think that's what we want to kind of discuss today.
Yeah, it's like a dive into what that looks like, because I think the thing is, going back to the kind of omnichannel piece, people usually just used to throw it out there as oh, I've got a website and it's mobile friendly, and I've got this, and it was I think it was more of a loose definition, right? And I think now what's changed is that the way that we're interacting with brands, as you said, is changed, and we're in the driving seat, right? You know, that's the main difference, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other points of the study was that you know, when you're kind of reading through it and you're kind of digesting it, what you're seeing is now that buyers, I mean, at the end of the day, any buyer is also a consumer, right?
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
You know, in our personal lives, the way that we engage and interact and make decisions, I think what's happening right now is your B2B buyer is saying, well, actually, why can't I replicate that in my business life? Right?
Totally.
Why can't I, you know, perhaps go and do my own research? You know, I'll go online, I'll look at social, I'll read some content, I'll perhaps kind of, you know, think about who I potentially want to work with. And then when I'm kind of ready to, you know, reach out to them and engage them, that's the point I want to speak to you.
Yeah.
But when I speak to you, I don't want to meet you.
No.
That's perhaps, you know, a Zoom call, and I want to kind of, you know, filter as far down as I can before I actually, you know, look at you face to face.
Yeah.
And many buyers are now saying, actually, I don't even need to look at you face to face, right? As long as I go through the process, well, why can't this just be a pure online transaction? It's really efficient. And like I said, the consequences for business are really interesting, especially for those businesses that are used to, you know,
face to face.
Yeah, the face to face side, the field sales. You know, there's a lot of. I mean, if you look at, you know, traditionally, you know, medical industry and all that kind of stuff, it's very much about, you know, events, relationships. It's all about
networking.
You know, so I thought that was interesting, but I mean, the important point here is this is new as well, because again, you know, we've referred to the 0 Moment of Truth study, which is now, I don't know, 12 years old or something like that.
Yeah, easily,
But the point is even back then, Google and Forrester had found out data which said that people don't want to kind of meet everyone anymore, right? They want to do their own research. They want to empower themselves. And I think what's happened is this is just really kind of fast tracked it.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences possibly as well is that there's always been a heavily driven marketing focus on consumer, right? So that marketing piece and that marketing effort was very much centralized around us. You know, we're trying to attract your attention. Here's some lights, here's some shiny keys, come and have a look at this. We're going to produce masses of content for you to go engage in. We're going to create competitions. We're going to create, you know, there was a buzz, right? There was an energy associated to that. Where in the B2B space, I don't think that energy transferred. You know, some of the energy would be at an event, right? It's exciting. You go to an event, you go, even if it's an industry event, it's still exciting. You get to meet new people. You're at the office. Occasionally you travel. But I think at that time you had to do that because there wasn't the information or data or content available in an easily digestible format, right? In a B2B space. So, you know, I think that's been one of the shifts as well, where, you know, in kind of moving into that omnichannel piece, like there's now data to research, right? And I think we saw a massive spike in, you know, enterprise multinational companies that weren't ready for it right at the beginning of COVID. It was like, you know, people still bringing brochures to events and stuff like that, and, you know, and oh, I've got it on a USB now, so you don't have to walk away with it. But you're still, you know, it was transactional in the sense that I was having to go somewhere to get something to then ask your permission to have it, versus it's out there, right? And I think even the early movers in that B2B space just gated a whole ton of content as well, right? It was very much, you know, kind of fully gated. If you want to find out about this, I need to find out more about you, or you want to find out about this, but you know, almost closing the door on them, right? Whereas in the B2C space, again, B2C very open, right? They're not afraid to give you more. You want more, you want more, you want more. Yeah, no problem. Like, here it is, right?
Yeah. And I think that's it. When this starts to really sort of converge, I think this is where it gets really interesting. Just on a kind of side note, just an observation last week. So I went to an event.
Right. Okay.
And it was a kind of high profile event. Bunch of CEOs there. And I would say 50% of them didn't carry any business cards with them. Yeah. And I think, again, if you look at events now, if you look at and people are just like, you know, normally, you know, remember there was this, like, you know, business card ritual in the bar, you know, you kind of like this, and you know, it was always a, you know, like I said, it was a ritual. It wasn't like,
Yeah, that's right.
Word for it.
Yeah.
Whereas that kind of happened one-sided last week, where people were like giving you a business card and you're like, okay, cool, thank you. I carry business cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it was nuts because honestly, I'd say half, if not more, weren't carrying cards around. Even there was a kind of like, hey guys, you know, swap cards and you know, make sure you're speaking to it. Like there's only
must be a touch thing, right? I don't want to touch that card.
People were just like, do you know what? I've not carried cards for 2 years, so I'm not going to start. And this was people were just very blunt with it. So again, if you
I thought it was originally the touch thing.
I don't know.
Like you're touching a card and then you're kind of touching something, and then and also like you said, some people haven't been in the office for 2 years.
Yeah.
There's certain multinationals we know that haven't been allowed to step back in the office.
That's
so where's their cards sitting on the desk?
No, exactly. You know, I think this is the point, right? Where even now, if you're going to events, if it's trade shows, if it's things like that, and if people aren't carrying cards, then you know, how's that going to kind of play itself out, right? Because again, I
don't know. It'd be interesting because what we haven't done yet is obviously you're at an event, participating in an event, but we haven't been at an event where we've got a booth.
No, true.
Which we have done in the past.
Yeah.
Now, what we tried to do previously, actually even before COVID, was having like a HubSpot form that people would fill out, right? So possibly ahead of the game there, but we were still, people would walk past and go, oh, here's my card, can you, right? You know, or can I take your card?
Yeah, we try to digitalize everything.
Exactly.
Like, I'll just give you my card.
Yeah.
But we'd end up manually inputting data. I don't know. I mean, look, I just think it's interesting. And I think, like I said, there's definitely kind of changes there. But I think there's a couple of other points I want to kind of raise from the study, because I think there's some really kind of key data here that will get everyone thinking. But like I said, the first one was the 94%. You know, they're saying that the way we do business now is just much more effective, or the way we sell now is just much more effective.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is the number of different channels that B2B buyers are using. So again, if we go back 5 years, right?
Yeah.
People were using maybe 5 different sort of channels or ways of engaging with a company. And that's now doubled, right? So there's 10 different touch points or ways that companies are kind of engaging in that sales process. And I think that becomes interesting. We'll touch on a couple of what those are in a second as well. But I think the other thing is prior to COVID, if you were buying maybe a big ticket item, doing that remote necessarily wasn't the right way of doing it. So if you're making a big investment, then there would always have to be some level of kind of face-to-face engagement or interaction or something along those lines. We've jumped on planes to do this and facilitate, you know, even if it's to go and, you know, sign a contract, whatever it is, we've kind of done that, right, over the years. But we closed bigger deals over the last 2 years that haven't involved even meeting the client. I think we held an event last November where we're meeting some of our clients for the first time.
First time, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that was, you know, obviously a face-to-face event. So I think that barrier to, okay, well, look, if it's an expensive item or a big ticket item, you need to make sure that, you know, you've got the ability to meet someone. Buyers are saying, no, we don't necessarily need that as long as we're going through the right process. We're fine. We don't need to sort of engage face-to-face. But I think on the back of that presents a huge challenge, right? And what buyers are now saying, right, is that, look, our suppliers today just need to be 100% on top of their game. Okay, so we want guarantees. We want to make sure that they can deliver on all the things that they've promised. And if they don't deliver, we have no hesitation in cutting ties with them. Now, in the past, if there was personal relationships there, you know, you met this person 3 or 4 times. There's some sort of bond there, right? Right.
Yeah.
This is huge. In my mind, this is huge, right? Because now, if you look at it, what it ultimately means is your clients are much more clinical now, right? They don't know you, right? They've done their research. You may have had some level of rapport on a Zoom call or whatever it is, but so what, right? I'm buying a service from you. You haven't delivered them, you know, what you said you were going to do. You haven't done it on time. I'm just going to go and find someone else who can do it. Whereas, you know, potentially before, what you might have is, look, we'll sit and work this out.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that is just huge, right? Across every industry, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have that relationship,
Yeah.
And relationship selling has just always been so incredibly huge, right?
Yeah, I think that kind of that emotional connection piece is definitely a deciding factor. When people are looking for renewals or people are looking to kind of work with individuals. I think people buy from people, or previously obviously was the case. You know, in that sense, I think interestingly going.
So do people now buy from people?
Yeah, I think they still do.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I mean, but it's less so. No? Do you not think that's?
Again, it depends. I think it really depends on what you're selling, right? So if you've got highly technical, sale, for example, there's still going to be individuals that are involved, right? In that kind of personal connection, you want to understand that individual is technically proficient to help me, right? I think that's there, and I also think when you're looking at super premium or super luxury, there's a personal touch that needs to be involved as well. I think that if you look more, look what's ultimately potentially driven that is SaaS. So like that SaaS space, interestingly enough, you only start to get to know, which is interesting. I think you only start to get to know them like post sale.
Yeah.
Right. So the relationship is built on once you're a customer.
Low ticket stuff for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, just like we met with I mean, it was chunky. Like there was an investment, kind of thousands and thousands of dollars a month, but it was still very much like super quick, kind of intro and stuff. And then the focus was very heavily built on, you've got a customer success manager, that person's going to take care of you, So it's kind of like, that's where the relationship piece is. Sure. So I think it really depends on the industry. Like I'll be honest, I just think that, and also look, as much as we are talking about the fact that people are changing, there's still some people that, just want to be told, right? So yes, you want to do your own research up to a certain point, but then there's other people that you want to kind of step back in, right? And I think that also is the case in I mean, it's almost gone completely in that for me, for electronics. Now I like going to certain shops, for example, to hear like, kind of some expertise, right? And I've watched videos, I've done this, I've done all of that, done all my own research. Then I kind of want to hear an opinion piece on it. Sure. So I don't know. I think it's very individual.
I think look, you're right. And I was being, I was being contentious, I guess. But the challenge is, and I think what really kind of makes it interesting is people, people do buy from people, right? We get that, but there's a lot of companies that aren't even in the conversation, right? And so there's people missing out on conversations.
Yeah, I think also definition of people could be the brand itself.
Yeah.
So I think I think that, correct, now you can build a relationship with a brand, right? Apple's a prime example. People buy from Apple, right? I mean, it's just Apple. It's you kind of drank the Kool-Aid and that's it. It's like, fully devoted in that space, right? Because it's such a good experience. Like you said, they're delivering on what they said they're going to deliver on, right?
Exactly. And this is it. So I think what people are doing is, like I said, the buyers are more empowered. So they're now researching. And look, the reality is, they're not only going to contact you if they get a good feel for the company as a whole, right? Because they're doing that research. They've got probably a mental checklist of all the things that they're looking for. And it's only those people that kind of make it through to maybe some level of a shortlist, where then you've got an opportunity. So I guess if we kind of just summarize this piece, it's the it's becoming less important, but it's still obviously.
I think but also I think it's a customer-centric approach, right? So I had a prime example of it last week, talking to an organization that was explaining to me what they wanted their buyers to do. Well, we've built out this because we want them to do this first and this first and this first. Then we want them to do this
for the buyers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
interesting.
It was like, listen, guys, we're not at a dog show, right? It's like, I want him to jump through that hoop. Then I want him to run up the ladder. Then he's got to wag his tail 3 times. Like it was, and they kind of sat back and they were like, okay, right. So we're going about this wrong. Yeah, because actually the data is telling us that no one is doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone is kind of building their own individual, journey. Right. And also through various touch points. Yeah. Right. So some people are coming on and, those people that I just want you to contact me. I'm busy, I can't do it.
Sure.
You've got other people that are, watching videos. You've got other people that then jump on chat and talk to a chat bot. Right. Again, I think it's very different. And again, back to the industry, I mean, look at, when I'm dealing with my bank, I genuinely want to talk to a person. Like I want to talk to someone, I don't want to go through an IBR system. And when I have to talk to a bank, like it's very rare I have to, obviously, like most of the banks now have some phenomenal digital touch points through that omni-channel piece, but there are elements where I want to speak to somebody, right? And again, it goes back to choice. So it's like, you can lean into certain paths. So we'd prefer you to talk to us here, or talk to us here, or talk to it, but you can do this, right? I think that's the challenge for a business, right? Challenge for the business is, well, Christ, how much am I supposed to offer, right? What level of service do I need to get to?
Flexibility is key. Right?
Yes.
Because I think that the companies want to work with companies that are flexible.
Yeah.
Right. We all know this. You don't even need data to back that up,
no.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think if you're offering that flexibility from the get-go, right, from that very first interaction, I think that sets the tone moving forward, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're saying to a client, if a client wants to meet you and you're like, actually, our process is that we just speak to you, over a Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
Perhaps that isn't showing the level of flexibility that they would want. But
I've done that though.
We have done that. I know we have. But and as soon as I said that,
like going through a path. we use that as a client. There's other.
Do
as I say, not as I do.
There's other elements involved in that decision. Anyway, let's move on swiftly. Do as we say, not what we do, right? Okay. So 5 success factors, Andrew. This was obviously what we're kind of leading into.
Yeah, that's what people want to
Yeah.
hear.
So how do you kind of move on from this? How do you kind of embrace what's going on, this kind of shift, this change?
Yeah.
How do you kind of develop it further, right? So we're all kind of doing it now, but how do we kind of extend that and kind of be much more customer friendly, buyer friendly? Yeah. So I've got the list here. So let me kind of go through one at a time, and we'll
I was just say, I thought you were going to burn me then and say, I'll give you. Can you guess one? No, I can't. So let's just no, don't spin it around. Just like go through. Let's work through the list.
If you give me ideas like that, I'm just going to jump on it. All right. So let's perhaps pause that game for a second. But the first one was customer centricity.
Yeah,
we just spoke about that. Okay.
Already answered that one.
Yeah. So but what we need to be obviously customer first on all those elements. But I think what companies are doing now, we're seeing it more. I'm sure there's a lot of companies that aren't doing it, but they are really clearly defining their customer journey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think that's a really important point because, I don't think any company can say, right, this is exactly how our customers buy from us. And that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's too many kind of variables involved in that, right? So you've got those guys who, potentially aren't the decision makers.
Yeah.
So you need to maybe have a slightly different journey for those guys. If they are a decision maker, perhaps it's a more kind of fast tracked, customer journey. But the reality is even different industries have different ways of doing things. And I think companies need to kind of really address that and align that and say, look, what does it look like?
Yes.
Where do they start? How do we find them in the first place? How do we kind of get them excited about our product or service? How do we then sort of engage them? How do we get them to kind of speak to us?
Yeah.
Right. And then finally, how do we get a deal over the line?
Mm-hmm.
That journey's long, right? And we've had clients in the past and we've sat with them and said, look, how long is your sales cycle? And they're like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like, right. So you need to know that journey. That's it. Inside out.
Where's the drop off? Where's the lack of interest? Yeah.
Exactly. Or you're like, you just get better salespeople.
Exactly.
But it's normally one of the two. You need to either understand your journey or just optimize it, right?
No, that buyer journey is crucial, right? I think we should write a book called "Are You a Self-Serve Checkout Guy?" Because I keep seeing more of these self-service checkouts pop up. I've got no time for them. Yeah. I saw one yesterday, and I wonder if that again going down to. I remember a guy speaking from STC in Saudi Arabia where they were offering self serve, and it was great. Like it was, people were enjoying it, but there was like 90% of the people that still want to talk to someone or still want to go through. So it's again offering that choice, understanding that buyer journey using data, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's it. I think what we all know is the sooner we engage with someone, the better.
Yes.
Right. The sooner we're in a position to have that kind of interaction, personal interaction, whether it's face to face or whether it's a call. Your sales, the sales cycle suddenly gets a bit shorter as soon as that happens. But I think it's really kind of making sure that you're not aggressively following your own path and you're being very flexible. The second one, again, one of those kind of nice words that we never really use, but companies need to kind of have a holistic approach to basically all of these different channels that are available, right? So
I wonder where that comes in, that word, actually, because I was thinking about this when we were talking about the growth show. Because obviously when you talk about holistic medicine or holistic healing and stuff, it's kind of, dudes that look like me with longer hair, right? And beads and stuff like that.
Well, you talk about holistic healing and with your legs crossed and
legs crossed. Geez, yeah. I don't even want to do that on the show. No, I guess I guess what does it mean? That's the question, right? So what does that holistic approach mean, right? So go on.
Well, so basically what they're saying here is that you've got to look at each channel, okay, and you've got to have a very kind of clearly defined role for that channel.
Okay. Yeah.
And that kind of sounds, I don't know whether it sounds obvious or what, but people really kind of, if we start from the beginning, right? If someone's doing research, then your company blog perhaps or your website needs to have a very specific reason for being there, right? We see a lot of websites that are kind of trying to do everything for everyone. Right. But actually, if you say, look, the role of our website, the role of our blog is literally just to educate people pre-sales, then you build it in a certain way, right? You kind of say, look, we have to focus on educational content. We have to tell people exactly what we do as quickly as we do, and we have to show them that we're very good at it and that we're successful. Right. And you have to build it that way. If you don't build it that way, you end up being a brochure, and it's kind of people get lost in that. I think in the same kind of vein, I think it's what's the role of that initial Zoom call you have, or the Teams call? Right. What is the purpose for that? What is the outcome on the back of it? And I think again, if people know what the expectations are, again, it makes things a little bit more organized.
We used to talk about content having context, but I think I think it's evolved to have meaning. Right. Okay. So it has to, I feel like in line with what you're saying there, I feel like now there has to, as you said, be a purpose or a meaning behind something. Right. I think, I was talking last week to a client where it was like content for content's sake. I just feel like it's a churn of continuous content because we're being told we have to do it. But I think, everything that you kind of create to engage with someone should have a meaning.
Correct.
Right. It should facilitate a tick box somewhere, right? Whatever the case may be.
Do you know there's I'm sure you've seen it as well, but I've been on some really well-structured Zoom calls, right? Where you can tell that it's not just, okay, guys, just jump on a call and have a meeting.
Yes, yeah.
But they know exactly what I want to get at.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
The next steps are very
mainly US.
Yeah, it is actually. In all fairness, it is with a lot of American clients or prospects perspective, but you don't leave that call wondering what's next.
No,
right?
Exactly.
You know very clearly that this is what's been agreed. This is the timelines. But again, I think just defining that makes it important, and training people. So look, this is how you optimize that time, because yes, we're all saving time by not sitting in traffic, but we also don't want to be on more calls than we need to be on.
Exactly.
Right. We also don't need to spend more time on a call than we need to be on.
No.
Right? So
that's right.
So we've got to take that into consideration, and I think there's a real value right now of. I think in the past, potentially, if you walked into a meeting and if you're trying to sell something and you kind of got all the information you need and left in 10 minutes, there's a negative connotation for that, right? Where even perhaps the person you're trying to sell to say, what's going on here? And you may have got all the information you need, Whereas in a Zoom call, actually, if someone
It's a
gives me
bonus.
everything I need in 10 minutes,
It's a bonus.
you know, I like you.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I can work with you. Right? This is kind of that.
No, I think clients like it as well because
Yeah.
it means that it gives them a break for the next meeting.
True. Right?
Really, like, I mean,
you get back an extra 20 minutes.
yeah, I mean,
It's like,
literally, that I think that's what
absolutely.
it is. That timepiece is crucial now, right? Again, you know, once you kind of nip it in the bud, that's good. Thanks very much.
So just to wrap up that sort of second point, the even in terms of, you know, really kind of defining the roles within the company, and they, in the study, they used a case study, I think, for an industrial business. And then what they said is actually, you know, we didn't really kind of do too much kind of lead generation from a digital standpoint. So we switched that funnel, right? We basically turned that tap, leads started coming in, and we said, right, so the leads are just for your kind of, you know, your field sales guys, or your inside sales guys. You guys figure that piece out, but your responsibility is to understand what's qualified and what's not. What companies also were doing is saying, actually, we spend, you know, we don't have enough digital content, right? So if we do want our website to educate people, we do want to have nurturing content. That's where our digital kind of content needs to sit. So the role of, you know, lead gen is leads. The role of then that content is to kind of educate further, make sure we're delivering the right content, you know, at the right time and all of those things. And then what a few companies have done, and I felt this was really interesting, is then once something was qualified, sales were not as big a sort of factor in the closing. It was down to customer success.
Right.
So the customer success team or even a customer service team were the ones who are saying, hey, look, we're the ones that you're going to be working with.
Right.
You know, here's the contract, sign this, we get started. And I felt that was interesting because that feels like a bit of a shift.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, whereas typically you'd get that sales
operations. Exactly.
Whereas now operations are saying, no, let us close the deal. Which I felt was really interesting.
I think there's a bit of there's definitely conversation more sales actually being involved post-sale as well. You know, they build that relationship, they take ownership of it, and then it's not a tag team anymore. It's kind of an element of consistency for the client, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is, I think that shift is going to, and I think that's the changing role of salespeople.
Yeah.
Do you know, we'll talk about that because I think that's a really interesting point because, I think it makes total sense.
The
next...
Number 3, right?
Number 3, the next one. So reduce channel conflicts. And I think this one's super important as well. So so there's been a kind of focus on things like digital sales and stuff like that, right? So companies are saying, you know, we have these great relationships with, say, third-party resellers or partners or distributors and all that kind of stuff. But actually, because of the pandemic, we've had to, you know, work on our own digital presence. And companies have got quite good at it quite quickly, right? Because they were forced to, you know. And again, if you're talking about, you know, reliance on third parties, because those third parties, I think in the software industry, for example, there's a lot of reliance on other people, other companies to go and sell your products.
Definitely,
right? So
a lot of vendors and channels and stuff,
So, so the real kind of shift, because now all of a sudden the guys who are creating these products are saying, actually, we've had to digitize what we do. Why don't we just start building our own sales teams and going direct to the clients? Right? And we've seen this in, you know, in the kind
whole
of
host of different
B2C
industries,
but, you know, the sort of direct to customer movement is massive. It's huge. But in the B2B space, I think that becomes really interesting because there's a lot of huge companies and organizations that exist who do nothing other than sell other people's products.
Yeah, true.
Right. And if that shift and that movement's kind of happening in this space, I think that becomes really interesting. You know, and so I think that's also something to do.
I think the realization is that, you know, the better relationship you ultimately have with your customer consumer, the better you understand them, you know, the closer you are to them, more opportunity to delight them and ultimately potentially upsell to them. And the challenge is that a lot of those organizations do not have a relationship with direct consumer. And the information that's given back to them is mixed, right? Poor and okay at best, I'd say. So, you know, you kind of, and then also, especially when you're looking at things like delivery, you know, manufacturing, you ultimately own the whole supply chain when you're dealing direct to consumer. So you're not kind of then putting someone else in the way, right? I mean, it kind of, we talk about frictionless environment, you know, and how some of these, you know, kind of companies have transformed, you know, global industries based on frictionless, right?
Yeah.
And legacy. And I think that's what's key. You know, you can own that entire customer journey from start to finish if you're direct to consumer.
Yeah, and you've just got much more flexibility because
Yeah.
none of these third parties are doing it for free.
No.
Right? So
no,
whenever you've
yeah,
got a middleman,
true.
you know, better believe that the middleman's taking a cut.
Yeah, because otherwise, how do they operate?
Right?
Yeah.
So if you kind of look at it from that perspective, now there's a bit more flexibility. But I think the trade-off is exactly that. They've never had that touch point with clients before. So they've got to be also organized from that.
But this also goes back to your point of kind of the shift in selling, in the sense that now companies are producing their own content, they're producing.
Yeah.
Previously, they were relying on their partners to go and have those conversations, right? And if there's less, so there's no desire for them to build their own sales team, and you know that's a headache. We don't want to deal with that. But actually now, in a lot of circumstances, they don't have to, right? So you know, there's a less reliance on that partner, right, to convert sales, because ultimately, as you mentioned right there at the beginning, people are discovering their sales themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Cool. The fourth one, I'm just conscious of time here.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes.
Digital sales and marketing. So companies need to embrace that. And I guess, you know, that starts very much from kind of brand awareness through to sort of
digital marketing. I feel is like, that's a huge tick box, and I feel, believe it or not, guys. So you may be watching this going, yeah, okay, thanks. You're talking about digital marketing daily. We get calls on, I need to start doing some digital marketing.
Right. Yeah,
daily.
Yeah.
Right. So these are talking about, you know, we're not talking about, you know, kind of archaic businesses. We're talking about well-known brands that haven't embraced it. So, but I do think that digital marketing is ahead of digital sales. So, yes, you know, I think that is still, there's a huge gap there, right?
Yeah, digital marketing's been around for a long time. Digital sales has been kind of forced upon a lot of people in the last few years.
Exactly.
But I think we should quickly talk about both. And I think the you know, because I think let's differentiate that digital sales piece and give people an idea in terms of what we talk about there. But obviously, from a marketing standpoint, if we're talking very much kind of B2B and sales, we need to focus really on that kind of lead generation and content, and all of those things that come into play here. I think what's interesting is, even from that, there's a lot of companies who have sales funnels, but don't necessarily have marketing funnels.
Yes.
I think that's also something that we see a lot. Right. So when we start to kind of develop kind of, you know, full marketing funnels for clients and for prospects, they get really kind of interested to see exactly how this all plays.
How it flows.
So I think you know, the funnel side is key. I think the nurturing piece is obviously important, because not everyone who engages with you wants to buy straight away.
No.
Like we said earlier, there's 2-year sales cycles in some cases, and in these scenarios, both that user journey, the touch points, and how digital marketing really plays for really a kind of vital and almost critical role in that process, I think is key.
People want to spend their time researching as well now, right?
Yeah.
So even if you know, it's not left to the last minute. You know, they have the opportunity to discover so much more, and a lot of the cases as well, you know, COVID has kind of opened up that global landscape, you know, where potentially they may have been looking for services literally in their geographical area, but now they're kind of going wider afield as well, right? So this gives them chance to qualify and research and.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when we talk about digital sales, a couple of minutes on that, I think the key part of this is really having some sort of foundation, and we kind of, you know, tell everyone that's the CRM piece.
Totally.
You know, if you're not sure what's going on from a digital standpoint, if you're still using Excel sheets, if you're still kind of using sort of unintelligent tools, and yes, Excel has some intelligence to it, but it's far easier to use a CRM with built intelligence tools.
Exactly.
That just give you kind of insights and you know, realities on exactly what's going on with your sales pipeline.
Collective knowledge as well, right? I think the difference between a CRM and a kind of like an Excel, which we see, which is the, you know, essentially what is used in a very basic sense, is that there's collective intelligence associated to CRM platforms that, you know, they're directly aiming at sales activity. An Excel sheet, as we know, can be used for anything, right? You can have your shopping list on an Excel sheet. So, you know, CRM is very much sales focused, sales driven, customer centric, right? Which is ultimately what we're trying to lean into.
And also things like proposal tracking and stuff like that. Again, you know, you really kind of being intelligent with that entire sales process. Not just tracking things, but and tracking deals as such. But what about the documents you're sending out?
Exactly.
How engaged are your prospects with proposals? I think it's really where that kind of digitalization of sales comes into play. And just the last piece here, Andrew, sort of number 5 is faster decision making. And I kind of feel as if this is something I think we benefit from definitely as an organization, very much in the early days of COVID. But the fact that we kind of had a digitalized business, made life very easy because we had access to real data and numbers.
Yes,
but I think the fact that we were being much more efficient, from a kind of whole business operation perspective, with the whole team operating remotely, Zoom and internal meetings and Slack and all of these different kind of products that we were kind of using, really kind of made the business really efficient. I'd say so much more efficient than perhaps when we were, kind of in the office.
Definitely.
And on the back of that, we had more time to jump on to internal, meetings. We had board meetings on a daily basis at one stage. But on the back of that, faster decisions were being made. And again, this is one of the kind of key points that's been highlighted in the report, but actually for all of this to work, this isn't a case of set it up, leave it alone for a couple of years.
No, that's right.
And then come back and look at the results.
Tweaking.
There's data, right? There's live. It's a live sort of animal, and therefore you need to kind of be on top of it and understand exactly what's what, and make decisions as you need, right? So I just felt it's a fairly obvious point, but I felt really kind of important.
No, it's interesting. I think that there are, organizations that have had to force themselves to make some decisions, but there is definitely some organizations that I was blown away on a call the other day that bear in mind, we're sitting in Q1, and from what seemed like a fairly simplistic integration, somebody from IT said, okay, we can look at this Q4 of 2023. It's a 2-week job.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, the less said about IT, the better.
So I still think there's some stuff in there, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we are nearly on time.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Andrew, I've enjoyed that today.
That's good. Good run through.
Guys, we're on every week. So same time every week, unless we're kind of traveling, because that happens nowadays. But 10 o'clock UAE time, a little bit earlier for our friends in Europe. But the point is, we're on LinkedIn now. If you miss the show, you can always catch it on LinkedIn afterwards as well.
We're just currently updating our YouTube channel, guys. So all of the, by probably next week, we'll have all of the previous shows. We've got 2 years worth of shows you can see. I think both Amit and I, our hair color changing during those 2 years of stress. So you can see various lengths of hair and beards and stuff. But there's a kind of entire back catalogue, guys, there as well, if you want to kind of dive in and take back. And then I think, we're exploring going live on some other channels. We do make the show interactive. So we're still kind of exploring that and how that looks. There's chat on. So now there's kind of people, some of you guys are watching on LinkedIn, some of you are watching on Zoom, obviously, but there's the ability to kind of jump in and ask questions, and obviously always reach out to myself and Amit on there. And again, it goes up on the podcast, so available on Spotify and Apple Music and all that. I don't think we're going to get cancelled like Joe Rogan, so I think we're okay. Yeah.
But guys,
I wouldn't mind 100 million from Rumble, though. That'd be all right. But anyway,
No, guys, we appreciate the comments as well. I kind of conscious of the fact that we didn't really open it up to questions today, but if you do want to kind of engage with the show, ask us questions. We do keep an eye on the various channels. As they sort of come in. So, but we'll save that for next time. So just a quick update on next week's show, because I think this is it's interesting. We've obviously been referring to different kind of research studies.
Yes.
So I thought it'd be good to actually focus on one of ours.
Yeah, exactly.
So we kind of in 2021 we sort of tasked our content team, basically with an idea, which was, guys, let's see what happens if we produce and publish 365 blogs in 365 days. So basically, all of 2021, we published a blog article every single day, irrespective of weekends, irrespective of holidays. Basically, the team did an incredible job of producing some really kind of great content. And it's funny because obviously this is something we recommend to our clients in terms of create engaging content.
That's right.
Engage your audience. But we tracked obviously everything because we wanted to really understand the benefit of this approach.
Yeah.
And what we are going to be doing is releasing the results of this and really talking about the impact in the next show. So full transparency, lots of data, and actually just to give you guys a real insight in terms of maybe the power of sort of creating content and actually what happens almost like with that compounding effect of creating a lot of content. But it was a year-long experiment, so I'm quite excited to kind of actually see the results finally. So this will be kind of fresh and sort of hot for press, but we'll be sharing.
Dissect it next week.
Yeah.
ABAD, a blog a day. Good stuff. All right, thanks, Amit. Good chatting to you again.
Thank you, Andrew.
Next week. Thanks, everyone, guys. Catch up with you next week and have a good one. See you later.
Take care.